there. Shalom, family. What's up, family? It's your boy, Furious Styles the Hebrew, aka Hebrew in the Hoodie, aka your brother Furious. Let's get it. 5 things we learned from the LGBT community in 2021. You know, there's been a lot of distractions with the pandemic and politics and all the cesspool of public rumors and propaganda and agendas and who's having sex with who and who just got killed, and they do a great job of distracting us. Very great job. So 5 things we learned from the LGBT community in 2021. Copyright Act of 1976, fair use. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research. Non-profit educational or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. First up at bat, I figured that I'd start off with something light. We're going to walk into the world of detransition surgery. Detransition is the cessation or reversal of transgender identification or gender transition, whether by social, legal, or medical means. So you can detransition yourself through a doctor, or just by saying that you're no longer what you thought you were. So this portion of the video is about detransition. Walt Heyer, who you see right before you on the video, is an American author and speaker who underwent gender assignment and lived for 8 years as a transgender woman before detransitioning in 1991.
We're told that something between 65 and 95, the number is hard to nail down, 65 to 95% of children who go through this process before they're 18 will eventually work to transition back. If those numbers are right, and you could illuminate that,
yeah,
that doesn't support the position to push children through that process.
Well, there's some critical things to know about that. If we leave the child alone and don't affirm them, don't give them a new name and tell them to go to school if it's a boy, as a girl, if we don't affirm that and don't push that, up to 92% of them will desist by the time they're adult.
92%.
Up to 92%. It can somewhere between 80-some% and 92%.
They'll grow out of it.
They'll just basically grow out of it. Here's the problem, and the side who's advocating for this knows this. If we get them on hormone blockers and get them going down the path of cross-dressing, identifying, and going through this whole thing, 100% of them will stay transgender.
Yeah.
That because they're locked in. They've changed. Once you begin to stop puberty and begin to interrupt the natural development of the body, you've interfered with the process that God had intended for them to go through. And so you're playing God with somebody's body.
Catching them early and
they know that this is why they keep lowering the age group. I mean, they're cutting girls' breasts off now at 12 and 13 years old and putting them on hormone blockers. They're doing it with younger and younger, which is, to me, a total tragedy.
Yeah. Well, I could we could be here for 3 hours, not 30 minutes, but so I got to interject here and ask the really important question for me, and I don't know the answer to this exactly, but for the listeners, what brought you to the turning point in your life? What was the transition point for you?
Yeah, I thought I'd done the right thing. I thought this was cool, and And I was going to be a psychotherapist. So I started studying at UC Santa Cruz. I was going to go get my PhD, and I was going to like help people transition.
So this is while you were had surgery.
Yeah, I'm Laura. I'm at school as Laura. I'm going in and I'm going, I want to study this. And so then I began to see, as the case I told you about, separation anxiety was the term for it, because he was identifying his mother. I thought, well, this is interesting. The more I studied it, the more I realized there are underlying causes. And nobody's talking about the underlying causes. When I went in and was approved by my therapist, he didn't ask, I told him my story, about how I was sexually abused, what had happened, the cross-dressing. And he said, well, what you really need is hormone therapy and reassignment surgery. And I'm on hormones for 2 years, and then they do the surgery in 1983. So, but he was wrong. What he needed to do is what I'm so passionate about today, is sitting down and trying to find out what's causing you to not like who you are. What happened? Tell me about what happened. And it's amazing, the stories that come out of these. Every one of them has a story to tell. We should be actually talking about their stories. We should hear them. Many of them are too embarrassed to talk about them. But it's funny, once they are able to regurgitate what happened and be able to deal with it, the healing begins right at that point, because then they know they weren't born that way. They know that they didn't need hormone therapy. They know that they didn't need surgery, and they know they've been lied to, and they know that they could never actually, quote, change genders, because that's impossible. Right. So the whole thing was a lie, and that's what we're dealing with.
So why, I don't want to get off subject here, because what is the underlying motive for indoctrination?
Well, I wish I knew, and I can't get into their head, but there's primarily, this was originally driven by 3 men who were pedophile activists. That's how it got started. It was Harry Benjamin, John Money, and Alfred Kinsey, kind of as a group. The 3 Musketeers are the ones who started this, because they believed that effeminate boys would be easy to transition. And so they began this work on hormone therapy and reassignment.
In 2021, Dave Chappelle and DaBaby have faced backlash for their comments. The LGBT deemed their comments insensitive, homophobic, hate speech, and asked that their comments be retracted. Right? Same thing they did to Kevin Hart when they made Kevin Hart apologize for tweets he did 10 years prior to that time. Right? I find it interesting that they always want black men and sometimes black women to retract their statements, to apologize. Right? Life is about perspective. Right? If you want to be accepted in this community, in life, you have to take the same criticism and scrutiny as everybody else. Sometimes I feel like this group has a problem with taking accountability. Or, if you want to be normal, be normal. Normal people get talked about. So I don't agree with the backlash for Dave Chappelle and DaBaby. DaBaby correlated homosexuality with HIV. I don't know if I agree with that. I need more information. I guess I could see how that could be deemed disrespectful, honestly. Right? But I don't see how a person should have to go through a backlash and lose money because they made a mistake, or a misguided remark. These people are entertainers. They're not politicians. They don't have to have some type of ethical, moral code that politicians have. Or even sometimes regular people have. Let's be honest. Dave Chappelle received backlash for his many LGBT jokes and pointing out the hypocrisy of the baby having to go through this with the LGBT community, but he didn't have to go through anything when he killed the black man in Walmart, allegedly protecting himself. So to say that the LGBT was mad at these brothers, kind of like a understatement. They was real mad at these brothers. They was real mad at these brothers. Listen to me now. Real mad. I wish they could put that anger somewhere else. All right? I wish that they can thrust that anger in a different direction. Like giving people the proper information on certain things. This is some of the backlash that Dave Chappelle received. It's the backlash of the baby. Back to Dave Chappelle. Netflix employees stage a walkout for Dave Chappelle special. So yes, family, they was mad. They was big mad. Right? But my closing argument on there is, if you want to be treated fairly and equally, then you have to be talked about fairly and equally. Comedians talk about everybody. So January 5th, 2021, Lil Nas X says children are his core audience right now, and that's okay. So 25 days later, after January 5th, 2021, Lil Nas X performs his debut video, Montero, where he's giving a devil the lap dance and also kissing and other sexual intimate acts in this video. 100 days later, on July 19th, 2021, same year as his statement about kids is his core audience, Lil Nas X debut shoes, Air Maxes, that he says have a drop of human blood in them. Nobody told this guy to say he appreciates that kids is his core audience. We didn't make him say that. He said that. Here's the timeline. January 5th, 2021. Lil Nas X says kids is his core audience. 25 days later, March 30th, he's seen twerking and giving a devil lap dance. 101 days later after that, on July 19th, he's seen debuting his shoes that had a drop of human blood. From his words. Then the infamous "fuck your kids" on the Breakfast Club. Yes, he said "fuck your kids" on the Breakfast Club. Now, did he get any backlash from the LGBT, from the Democrats, or Democratic supporters? What was his backlash? Crickets. Nobody made a fuss. Nobody said they was coming for his bag. Nobody said he was politically incorrect. Nobody said that he was being insensitive and he should retract his statements. Nothing. Just crickets.
But it's like some people you just want to disconnect from. Yeah.
Do you feel the pressure of, I see it all the time, parents will be like, you know, you have a responsibility because kids are watching. You hear that Cardi B had that same problem and Nicki had that same problem. Do you feel that same way? Like,
I don't
Raise your own
really.
kids.
I feel like I used to, but now it's just like, so, like fuck your kids. Not like fuck your kids.
That's
exactly what
harsh.
you just said. but like,
You
just gave them another headline, Montero. Okay, what agenda is that? The fuck your kids agenda? It's like we really get one chance to do this, at least to my knowledge. I don't know like what happened when we die or whatnot. So.
Genital mutilation has been nearly universally condemned. Genital mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is...
For the record, this is Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky and Rachel Levine, the United States Assistant Secretary for Health.
Complex and nuanced field.
Which is a transgender.
Robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I would look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breasts and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness, except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breast or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we have believed that minors don't have full rights and that parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field. And if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question. The question is a very specific one. Should minors be making these momentous decisions? For most of the history of medicine, we wouldn't let you have a cut sewn up in the ER, but you're willing to let a minor take things that prevent their puberty, and you think they get that back? You give a woman testosterone enough that she grows a beard, you think she's going to go back looking like a woman when you stop the testosterone? You have permanently changed them. Infertility is another problem. None of these drugs have been approved for this. They're all being used off-label. I find it ironic that the left that went nuts over hydroxychloroquine being used possibly for COVID are not alarmed that these hormones are being used off-label. There's no long-term studies. We don't know what happens to them. We do know that there are dozens and dozens of people who've been through this who regret that this happened and a permanent change happened to them. And, you know, if you've ever been around children, 14-year-olds can't make this decision. In the gender dysphoria clinic in England, 10% of the kids are between the ages of 3 and 10. We should be outraged that someone's talking to a 3-year-old about changing their sex. I can't vote for you if you can't
Thank
make
you
a
so much,
decision.
Senator Paul. And Senator Levine, thank you for answering the question.
Recently told his parents that he's transgender. And according to Wade, he is fully on board with his son's transition to a girl. Now, there are a lot of people trashing Dwayne Wade and his wife, Gabrielle Union, right now, calling them bad parents for facilitating this transition, for letting a confused 12-year-old boy dictate serious medical decisions. And I get that. But I have a different message tonight for Dwayne Wade. One of the comments Wade made really hit home with me. He said, "I want to have all the information I possibly can." And I thought to myself, will anybody give Dwayne Wade and his family the truth? The real information, the scientific studies about gender dysphoria? Or will Dwayne Wade and his family be swallowed up by the rabid woke crowd pushing the transgender ideology for their own political reasons? So tonight, here are 5 facts Dwayne Wade should know. Number 1, between 80 and 90% of children under the age of 18 with gender confusion outgrow it by the time they're adults if they don't transition. Remember, these are kids who are not old enough to drive. They're not old enough to get their ears pierced without permission from their parents. These children should not be dictating life-changing medical procedures that aren't backed up by science. That brings us to number 2. The puberty-blocking drugs, the medication used on children with gender dysphoria before surgery, are the same drugs some states use to chemically castrate convicted child sex offenders. These drugs are not FDA approved for gender dysphoria or for children and can result in permanent sterilization of that child. Number 3, the suicide rate for people with gender dysphoria who undergo a transition is static post-surgery. In fact, the doctor at Johns Hopkins University who invented the surgery refuses to perform it anymore because it's not curative. Gender dysphoria is often comorbid with other psychiatric disorders, and when the root cause of those disorders is addressed, it's more likely to cure the gender confusion than bodily mutilation. Number 4, a significant percent of people regret their transition. In fact, 11% of transgender females regret their transition to the point where they actually detransition. But for many, it's too late. They're permanently sterile, infertile, and their lives have been ruined. Number 5, men are men and women are women. And no amount of surgery or name changing or skirts can change that. It's simply objective truth. It's science. It's biology. Men are not women because they feel like women. We don't tell schizophrenic patients, for example, that the voices in their head is real, and we shouldn't indulge the delusion of gender disordered people either. We should help them with the truth. So instead of trashing Dwayne Wade and his family, pass this information along to them. Treat his son with
So I'm going to give you a list of transgenders who transition from male to female participated in sports, and won in the events. C.T. Telfer won the women's 400 race. Rachel McKinnon won the trophy for the bicyclist. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Bicycles award. Laura Hubbard, weightlifting. Fallon Fox, she was perceived, I'm using the correct pronoun, she was perceived to fracture somebody's skull, fracture a biological woman's skull. I don't know that to be true. I'm just saying that's the perception. Andrea Yearwood, Terry Miller, both college athletes who participated in track for biological girls, and they won. I think they'll be referenced in the video after this. Thank you. A lot of people don't think that's fair. A lot of people are saying, boo, this is some bull crap. That's what they saying. That's not me. That's what they saying. They saying it's some bull crap. Let's go on with the second part of this women's rights.
It was just for fun, something to do after school. But by high school, I began to appreciate the beauty of the sport, what's required both mentally and physically to succeed. The intensity, the discipline, the precision. To compete at a high level in track takes years of dedication to a single goal. There's nothing more satisfying than crossing that finish line first. But running is only satisfying, and all that sacrifice is only worth it if the race is fair. In my freshman year, the night before a big race, my parents told me that a biological male who identifies as a girl would be competing in my race the next day. On the bus heading to the event, our coach also gave me the news. I didn't have much time before the race to process what this might mean, but I had plenty of time to process it afterward. And for the next 2 years of my high school career, as I watched again and again, first one, then two, biological males dominate girls' track events in our state. It started from what might have seemed like a fair idea. The Connecticut Athletic Association decided that males who believe they are girls can compete against girls. But beliefs don't change biology, and the result has been anything but fair. Since 2017, the two biological male runners who have competed in girls' high school track in Connecticut have won 15 women's track championship titles. Titles that were held by 9 different girls in 2016. 4 of those state championship titles should have been mine. They've also shattered girls' track records. Those two biological males now hold 17 all-time individual women's meet records in Connecticut. As a result, the rest of us have lost over 85 opportunities to qualify for higher levels of competition, losing scholarship opportunities, titles, and wider recognition. I remember the 55-meter indoor track competition in the 2019 state championship. I finished in 7.23 seconds. That was the top time among biological girls, but third overall. The male who finished second in the race clocked in at 7.01 seconds. The new women's state champion, also a male, broke the all-time record for the event, finishing in 6.95 seconds, a time that would have earned that same runner 140th place in the men's 55-meter dash that year. It's hard to explain the feeling that no matter how talented you are, no matter how hard you train, how much you practice, how much you want to win, you've already lost before the competition even begins. Losing builds character, but only if the competition is fair. I and two of my fellow female runners, Selena and Alana, sued the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference in federal court with the help of Alliance Defending Freedom. We challenged their policy because it unfairly discriminates against us girls. Studies have shown that male athletes consistently achieve results 10 to 20% higher than comparably fit and trained women across almost all athletic events. Even when males suppress testosterone, some of men's physical advantages never go away, like greater lung capacity, larger skeletal size, and greater bone density. In 1972, Congress passed Title IX, a civil rights law that was designed, in part, to stop discrimination against girls and women and to provide them with equal athletic opportunities. But now, in the name of progress, Connecticut and other states are undoing all of that. For the first time in nearly 50 years, they are tilting the playing field against women. That's not progress, and that's not fairness. It's discrimination. When the law reflects real, biological differences between males and females, that's a good thing. When it doesn't, girls like me suffer the most harm.
So, can we ask ourselves a couple questions? Why are these issues not being addressed or highlighted on your local liberal democratic media, television, TV, podcasts? Are women's rights important? Or just being politically correct, no matter how detrimental that is to certain people? For instance, Alana Smith, Chelsea Mitchell, and Selena Soleil, they all are suing their high school, and there's 20 other women, 20 other little girls and athletes, not little girls, but teen athletes, that is suing the Biden administration. They're saying that it's unfair for them to have to compete with transgender males that just transitioned to be males. I'm not telling you who to agree with, family. I'm not telling you to be homophobic. My cousin is gay. All I'm telling you is that this problem is not being highlighted. That's all. Alana Smith, Chelsea Mitchell, and Selena Soleil, are they homophobic? Should they have a right to compete against, should they have a right to only compete against biological females? I've heard people say, well, sports are never fair because one person could be 6'5" and this person could be 6'1". You know, that's all fine and dandy, but there are always contrasting elements of why people compete in the same sports. Even in boxing, you can't compete with people who are not in your weight class. So even boxing makes up, even boxing is aware that yes, there can be unfairness in sports, but boxing is trying to make amends every time you see the weight class. That's trying to fix that problem of unawareness, so nobody won't get killed. So some guy who weighs a $160 won't get in the ring with the guy that's 250 muscle, because he will get killed. So this notion that sports are unfair from the conception of sports, that's bullcrap. You know, you very rarely see a guy that's 6'7" being checked by a guy that's 5'9", 5'6". It's unfair. It's the reason why there's 5 positions in basketball. But that's neither here nor there. How, Sway? How? 20 states sue Biden administration over guidance allowing biological males on girls' sports teams. So are these girls that I just named, are they homophobic? Are their voices being heard? You know, I did a video about how the black man's voice is not being heard, how the black man's voice is being suppressed. Maybe I should do how the biological woman's voice is being suppressed also. Maybe that would be a good video. July 8th, 2021, a San Francisco gay choir sings the song "We Will Convert Your Kids to Be Gay." This San Francisco gay choir didn't receive no backlash, no cancel culture, no asking to retract their statement, nothing. Let's continue. So, July 8th, 2021, a San Francisco gay choir said, "We will convert your kids to be gay." Not only did they say we will convert your kids to be gay, but they made a song expressing, "We will convert your kids to be gay." Right? I have the lyrics and the melody. I find it very hypocritical that this could happen in 2021 in such a so-called perceived politically correct society that we live in. But without further ado, let me play the actual song for you.
You fight against our rights. You say we all lead lives you can't respect. But you're just frightened. You think that we'll corrupt your kids if our agenda goes unchecked. Funny, just this once, you're correct. We'll convert your children. Happens bit by bit, quietly and subtly, and you will barely notice it. You can keep it from disco, warn about San Francisco, make him wear pleated pants, we don't care. We'll convert your children. We'll make them tolerant and fair.
At first I didn't get why you'd be so scared of us turning your children into accepting, caring people, but I see now why you'd have a problem with that.
Just like you worried, they'll change their group of friends. You won't approve of where they go at night to protests. Oh, and you'll be disgusted when they start finding things online that you've kept far from their sight, like information. Guess what? You'll still be alright. We'll convert your children, yes we will.
Reaching one and all, there's really no escaping it.
'Cause even grandma likes RuPaul.
And the world's getting kinder.
Gen Z's gayer than Grindr. Learn to love, learn to vogue, face your fate. We'll convert your children. Someone's gotta teach them not to